My pregnant fiancée abandoned me at 8 months, calling me emotionally unavailable. Then 2 years later had the audacity to demand I buy her new family a $400,000 house because her stepkids deserved the same lifestyle as what I could provide. When I refused, she took me to court, claiming I was psychologically damaging children by living in a nicer place than them. Children I've never even met. Children that aren't mine. Here's what'll make you want to scream. Her new husband makes twice my salary. They weren't broke. They just wanted me to bankroll their dream life while I was still paying off the engagement ring for a wedding that never happened. But when she brought her lawyer to my workplace, trying to legally force me into being their sugar daddy, claiming I had a moral obligation to support kids who aren't mine, that's when I unleashed a revenge so devastating. Even her own lawyer ended up apologizing to me. If you've ever fantasized about an entitled ex getting exactly what they deserve, smash that subscribe button. Because what I did next will restore your faith in justice and prove that sometimes karma needs a little help. But let me back up and tell you how I ended up in this nightmare. 3 years ago, I met Ashley at a work conference. She was charming, ambitious, seemed like she had her life together. We clicked instantly, and within 2 months, we were inseparable. 8 months into dating, she dropped the pregnancy news. I was terrified but excited. This felt like fate pushing us towards something bigger. We got engaged within weeks, started planning our future, looking at houses. Ashley seemed genuinely happy about becoming a mom. That's when the demands started. She insisted we needed the $2,000 crib, not the $500 one, because our baby deserves the best. When I worked late to afford it, she complained I wasn't emotionally present. She wanted the $800 stroller, the designer diaper bag, the organic everything. Every time I hesitated about the cost, she'd clutch her belly and say, "Stress is bad for the baby." I paid for everything, thinking I was being a good partner. Then at 32 weeks pregnant, she started picking fights about how I never listened to her feelings. Despite me attending every appointment, building the entire nursery myself, and working overtime to cover her expensive tastes. That's when she met Brandon at prenatal yoga. This guy was recently divorced, had 2 kids, and started love-bombing her with flowers, fancy dinners, and poetry about her radiant motherhood. Within 3 weeks, she announced she was moving out, taking every baby item I'd bought. Between the crib, stroller, car seat, and everything else, I'd dropped nearly $8,000 on baby gear. She was now moving to another man's house. "I need to find real love," she said. "You're just not emotionally available enough." I was completely blindsided. Here I was, working 60-hour weeks to prepare for fatherhood, and she's telling me I'm emotionally unavailable? I begged her to reconsider, suggested couples therapy, promised to do better. But her mind was made up. Within a week, she'd moved into Brandon's place with his 2 kids, Emma, age 7, and Jake, age 9. Suddenly, she was playing stepmom to his children while carrying mine. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 months later, she gave birth to our daughter, Chloe. I was there for the delivery, held my baby girl, felt that overwhelming love every parent knows. But Ashley barely let me be involved. I got supervised visits twice a week while she played house with Brandon's ready-made family. The legal bills started piling up. Child support, custody arrangements, dividing our shared assets. Ashley's lawyer was ruthless, painting me as an absent father, despite my fighting for more time with Chloe. Meanwhile, Brandon was posting photos on social media of his girls, Ashley and Chloe, at family outings with his kids. For 6 months, I focused on being the best father I could be during my limited time. I thought maybe Ashley would realize what she'd thrown away. I was wrong. That's when the first demand came. Ashley called saying money was tight, with 4 people in Brandon's 2-bedroom apartment. Could I help with groceries? Just this once? Being an idiot, I sent $300, thinking it was for Chloe. The requests kept coming. School supplies for Brandon's kids because Chloe asks why her siblings have new backpacks and she doesn't. New clothes for everyone, since Brandon's kids are starting to resent her because she gets things they don't. Then came the bigger request. Could I help with a security deposit for a larger apartment? The kids are sharing rooms and it's affecting Chloe's sleep. Ashley explained. Against my better judgment, I sent $2,000. I should have seen the pattern, but I was thinking like a father, not realizing I was being played like an ATM. That $2,000 apartment deposit was just the appetizer. 6 months later, Ashley dropped the nuclear bomb that would change everything. She called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness I'd learned to dread. We need to talk about Chloe's living situation, she began. It's not fair that she goes back and forth between a cramped apartment and your nice house. The other kids are starting to notice the difference. I should have hung up right there, but she continued. Brandon and I have been looking at houses in better school districts. We found the perfect one. 4 bedrooms, big backyard, great neighborhood. The kids would have their own spaces, and Chloe would have the stability she deserves. That sounds great, I said, wondering why she was telling me about their house hunting. Then came the gut punch. The thing is, we need help with the down payment. Since you're the one benefiting from having Chloe in a stable environment, we thought you could contribute $80,000 toward the $400,000 house. I literally laughed out loud. You want me to buy you and Brandon a house? It's not for us, it's for the children, she snapped, dropping the sweet act. Chloe deserves the same quality of life at both homes. Right now, she's confused about why Daddy has nice things and her family doesn't. Her family? I repeated. I'm her family. You chose to leave and play house with someone else. That's when Ashley revealed the true depth of her entitlement. If you really cared about Chloe's well-being, you'd want her to have the best life possible. Brandon makes good money, but $80,000 is a lot for us right now. The audacity was breathtaking. I told Ashley absolutely not. There was no universe where I'd buy her boyfriend a house, but apparently, no wasn't in her vocabulary. The harassment campaign started immediately. First, it was guilt trips about Chloe feeling less than her siblings. Then Ashley's mother called, lecturing me about doing right by my daughter. Her sister texted paragraphs about how I was being selfish and vindictive. But the real shock came when Brandon himself showed up at my office. Picture this. I'm in a meeting with clients when my secretary buzzes in. There's a Brandon Harrison here claiming to be family. I excused myself, walked to the lobby, and there he was, this smug guy in an expensive suit, acting like he owned the place. We need to talk about the house situation, he said, loud enough for my colleagues to hear. Ashley's stressed about this, and stress isn't good for the kids. I pulled him into a conference room. What exactly do you think gives you the right to come to my workplace? Brandon leaned back in his chair like he was conducting a business meeting. Look, I know this is awkward, but we're all family now. Chloe needs stability, and frankly, your refusal to help is creating problems in our household. Our household? I said. Chloe has a household with me. You're just the guy her mother moved in with. His mask slipped. I make $180,000 a year, but even I can't swing an $80,000 down payment right now. You're being unreasonable. That's when it clicked. This wasn't desperation, it was a calculated scam. They'd planned this whole thing, probably from the moment they started house hunting. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. 2 weeks after Brandon's office ambush, I got served with legal papers at my front door. Ashley was taking me to family court, claiming I was psychologically damaging Chloe by maintaining a higher standard of living than her primary residence. The petition was 17 pages of pure insanity. Her lawyer argued that my willful refusal to ensure housing equality was causing Chloe emotional distress. They claimed she was showing signs of economic confusion and sibling inequality trauma because Brandon's kids lived differently than she did at my house. But here's the part that made my blood pressure spike. They were demanding the court order me to either contribute to their housing costs or have my custody reduced to supervised visits only to minimize Chloe's exposure to economic disparity. I hired the best family attorney I could find. During our first meeting, she read the petition and just shook her head. In 20 years of practice, I've never seen anything this ridiculous. But unfortunately, the family court system sometimes entertains these fishing expeditions. The preliminary hearing was a circus. Ashley showed up in a borrowed designer dress, playing the struggling single mother. Brandon wore his most expensive suit, somehow managing to look both successful and victimized. Their lawyer painted me as a vindictive ex who was weaponizing wealth against children. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it simple. Your Honor, I pay child support. I provide for my daughter during my custody time. I'm not responsible for housing choices made by my ex-fiancée and her boyfriend. The judge looked annoyed, but scheduled a full hearing for 6 weeks later. That's when Ashley made her fatal mistake. And it's also when I decided to stop playing defense and go on the attack. The night after that hearing, Ashley sent me a text that would seal her fate. Brandon's ex-wife is threatening to take the kids away because of our housing situation. If we lose Emma and Jake, Chloe will be devastated. You're destroying multiple children's lives over money. This was the first I'd heard about Brandon's custody issues. Something felt off, so I decided to do some digging. I hired a private investigator, money well spent as it turned out. Within 2 weeks, he handed me a file that changed everything. Brandon wasn't just hiding financial problems, he was hiding a criminal record. 2 years before meeting Ashley, he'd been arrested for fraud, specifically using fake documents to secure a rental property. The charges were dropped on a technicality, but the pattern was clear. More shocking, Brandon's ex-wife wasn't threatening to take the kids. She already had full custody. Brandon only got supervised visits after he'd tried to claim her house as his address on a loan application. Emma and Jake weren't living with Ashley and Brandon full-time. They were only there every other weekend. But the real bombshell was Brandon's financial situation. Remember how he claimed to make $180,000? His actual income was $67,000. The expensive suits, the nice car, even the apartment they were renting, all financed through credit cards and personal loans. Brandon was drowning in debt. Ashley didn't know any of this. She'd been completely played by a con artist who saw her pregnancy and my stable income as the perfect opportunity. Have you ever watched someone's entire world collapse in real time? Because that's exactly what happened when I walked into that courtroom with my evidence. If you're loving this story of justice being served, smash that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The full hearing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. I arrived with my lawyer and 3 manila folders containing enough evidence to destroy Brandon's entire facade. Ashley and Brandon walked in looking confident, probably thinking they'd guilt the judge into forcing me to fund their lifestyle. Brandon had the audacity to nod at me like we were old friends working toward the same goal. Their lawyer went first, painting an emotional picture of children suffering because of my selfish refusal to provide housing equality. Ashley took the stand and delivered a tearful performance about Chloe asking why her siblings lived in a small, cramped apartment while Daddy had a big house with a pool. When Brandon testified, he doubled down on the lies. He claimed his income, talked about his dedication to all the children, and even suggested I had a moral obligation as Chloe's father to ensure her siblings weren't disadvantaged by my success. Then it was our turn. My lawyer stood up with the first folder. Your Honor, before we respond to these claims, we'd like to present some facts about Mr. Harrison's character and financial situation that are relevant to this case. Brandon's face went white as she began reading from his criminal record. Ashley's mouth fell open when she learned about the fraud arrest. But the real shock came when my lawyer revealed Brandon's actual income and debt situation. Mr. Harrison owes $47,000 in credit card debt and is 3 months behind on his car payments. His claim of making $180,000 annually is demonstrably false. Ashley turned to stare at Brandon in disbelief. The man she'd left me for, the man she'd built her future around, had been lying about everything. But I wasn't done yet. My lawyer opened the second folder. Your Honor, we also discovered that Mr. Harrison has been misrepresenting his custody arrangement. Emma and Jake Harrison don't live with him full-time as claimed. Their mother has full custody, and Mr. Harrison only gets supervised weekend visits. The judge looked up sharply. So the housing crisis affecting these children is fabricated. Completely, Your Honor, but there's more. The third folder contained Brandon's loan applications. Applications where he'd listed my address as his residence and claimed my income as household income when trying to secure credit. Mr. Harrison has been committing identity fraud by using Mr. Thompson's address and financial information on multiple credit applications. We have documentation of at least 4 instances over the past 6 months. Brandon was now visibly sweating. Ashley looked like she was going to be sick. But the final nail in the coffin was the recording my PI had obtained. Brandon, drunk at a bar, bragging to friends about his brilliant plan to get his girlfriend's baby daddy to buy them a house. The guy's loaded and feels guilty about the breakup. Brandon's voice filled the courtroom. Ashley's got him wrapped around her finger. We'll be living in a mansion by Christmas while he pays the mortgage. Ashley burst into tears. Not the manipulative tears she'd used earlier, real tears of humiliation and betrayal. The judge was furious. Mr. Harrison, you'll be hearing from the district attorney about the fraud charges. As for this custody petition, it's not only denied, it's sanctioned. You'll be paying Mr. Thompson's legal fees. Brandon tried to speak, but his own lawyer was already packing up, clearly wanting nothing more to do with this disaster. But my revenge was just getting started. Outside the courthouse, Ashley was sobbing against a pillar while Brandon frantically made phone calls, probably trying to figure out how to explain his lies. His lawyer had already disappeared. I walked over to Ashley. She looked up at me with mascara streaking down her face. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know about any of it. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, I replied. You were so focused on what I could give you that you never questioned what he was hiding. Brandon finished his call and stormed over. This isn't over, he said, pointing at me. You've destroyed my life over what? Pride? No, I said calmly. I destroyed your scam. There's a difference. 2 days later, Brandon was arrested at his office for identity fraud. The story made the local business section. Local sales manager arrested for credit fraud scheme. His employer fired him immediately. Ashley called me that evening, broken and desperate. Brandon had moved out, taking his car and what little furniture wasn't financed. She was alone in the apartment with Chloe, facing eviction within 30 days. I know I have no right to ask, she said, but could you help with first month's rent somewhere smaller? Just until I figure things out? I was so stupid. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Ashley, who'd called me emotionally unavailable, who'd demanded I fund her fantasy life, was now begging for basic help from the man she'd abandoned. I'll help, I said, but not the way you think. The next day, I filed for full custody of Chloe. Within a month, I had it. Ashley's housing instability, her poor judgment in partners, and the court case where she tried to extort money from me all worked in my favor. The same judge who'd sanctioned Brandon remembered Ashley's attempt to extort housing money. Miss Williams has demonstrated concerning judgment regarding Mr. Thompson's parental fitness, she wrote in her custody decision. Now I had full custody of Chloe, and Ashley got supervised visits every other weekend. The exact arrangement she forced on me for over a year. The irony was beautiful. But the best part? Remember that $8,000 in baby gear she'd taken to Brandon's place? During the custody proceedings, I'd legally demanded its return. Ashley had to bring back every single item, the crib, the stroller, the designer diaper bag, everything she'd smuggled out when she left me. She showed up at my door with a U-Haul, tears in her eyes, loading my daughter's belongings back into the nursery I'd built. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. I was so stupid. I threw away everything good for a lie. Brandon, meanwhile, was facing federal charges. Using someone else's address and income on credit applications is serious business. His ex-wife got a restraining order after learning he'd been using their kids to manipulate Ashley. Emma and Jake, who Ashley thought were her stepchildren, hadn't even known she existed until the court case made the news. 6 months later, I got a text from Ashley. "Brandon pled guilty. 2 years federal prison. I had to move back in with my parents. I know you'll never forgive me, but thank you for giving Chloe stability." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Today, Chloe and I live in our house. The same house Ashley once demanded I upgrade for her new family. She's thriving in her school, has her own room, and doesn't have to share her father's attention with some con artist's schemes. Ashley pays me child support now, $400 a month from her part-time job. It barely covers Chloe's daycare, but it's a constant reminder of how completely the tables have turned. The final twist came a year later when Ashley's mother called me. I almost didn't answer. I'd blocked most of Ashley's family after they'd harassed me during the house demand saga. "I owe you an apology," she said. "We all do." Ashley finally told us the truth about what really happened. Apparently, Ashley had been lying to her family the entire time. She told them I was being vindictive and refusing to help with basic necessities for Chloe. She'd painted herself as the victim of a bitter ex who was using money to control her. Her mother continued, "Blush. We had no idea she was asking you to buy Brandon a house. We thought you were just being cruel about groceries and school supplies. Ashley let us attack you while she was... I can't believe my daughter did this." 3 months later, I got another call, this time from Ashley's sister, the same one who'd sent me angry texts about being selfish. "Brandon contacted Ashley from prison," she said. "He wants her to put money on his commissary account. Even now, he's trying to use her." Thank God she finally said no. The sister paused. "She asks about Chloe every day. She knows she destroyed the best thing in her life, and she knows she deserves everything that happened." I felt nothing hearing this. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness where all that drama used to live. The truth is, I'd won completely. I had my daughter, my peace, and my dignity. Ashley had to live every day knowing she traded a good man and a stable life for a con artist who'd used her desperation to try and scam me. But here's what I learned from this whole nightmare. And it's the real reason I'm sharing this story with you. Sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting some elaborate scheme, it's simply refusing to be a victim and letting entitled people destroy themselves. I could have tried to win Ashley back when she left. I could have competed with Brandon's love bombing by buying even more expensive gifts. I could have agreed to their ridiculous demands just to keep the peace. Instead, I documented everything, set boundaries, and let their greed expose who they really were. The moment Ashley asked me to fund Brandon's lifestyle, she revealed that she saw me as a resource, not a person. When Brandon showed up at my workplace trying to intimidate me, he showed he was a bully who preyed on others' guilt. When they dragged me to court with fake claims, they proved they had no limits to their manipulation. But here's the key. I didn't have to destroy them. They destroyed themselves. Brandon's fraud would have caught up with him eventually. Ashley's pattern of using people would have blown up in her face regardless. All I did was refuse to be their victim and let the truth come to light. If you're dealing with an entitled ex, manipulative family members, or anyone trying to guilt you into funding their lifestyle, remember this: their emergency is not your responsibility. Their poor choices are not your problem to solve. Set your boundaries and stick to them. Document everything. And when they inevitably escalate because you won't play their game, stay calm and let them show everyone who they really are. The truth always comes out. Sometimes it just needs a little help. If this story inspired you to stand up for yourself or reminded you that justice does exist, Hit that subscribe button and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because somewhere out there, someone else is being manipulated by their own Ashley and Brandon. And they need to know they're not alone. Today, Chloe is 4 years old and calls my house home. She has her own room, her toys, her routine, and most importantly, she has stability. When people ask about her mother, I simply say, "Mommy lives with Grandma now," and leave it at that. Ashley tried to re-enter the dating scene last year, but word gets around in a small community. When potential partners Google her name, they find news articles about the court case and Brandon's fraud arrest. She's learned the hard way that reputation matters, and some mistakes follow you forever. Brandon got out of federal prison 6 months ago. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he moved back in with his elderly parents and works at a gas station. His ex-wife made sure Emma and Jake know exactly what kind of man their father really is. Sometimes consequences are permanent. As for the money Ashley cost me, the $8,000 in baby gear, the $2,000 security deposit, the $5,000 in legal fees, I never asked for it back. Not because I'm generous, but because every month when she sends that $400 child support payment, she's reminded of how completely our positions reversed. The woman who once demanded I buy her a $400,000 house now struggles to afford her portion of our daughter's expenses. Sometimes people ask if I feel bad for Ashley, if I think I went too far. The answer is simple. She made her choices with full knowledge of the consequences. She chose Brandon over me. She chose greed over gratitude. She chose manipulation over honesty. I didn't ruin her life, I just refused to let her ruin mine. And honestly, I've never been happier. Chloe and I have something Ashley will never understand. Genuine contentment that doesn't depend on using other people. If you're watching this and dealing with someone who thinks your success obligates you to fund their failures, here's what I want you to remember. You don't owe anyone your peace, your money, or your dignity just because they demand it. Ashley taught me that some people will take your kindness and twist it into obligation. They'll use your love for your children as leverage. They'll paint you as the villain for having boundaries. But here's the truth. Anyone who tries to guilt you into supporting their lifestyle doesn't love you. They love what you can provide. The most important lesson? Document everything. Save every text, every email, every ridiculous demand. Because when entitled people escalate, and they always do, you'll need proof of their behavior. The system only works when you can show the pattern. To everyone who stuck around for this entire story, thank you. Your comments and support mean everything, and they remind me that good people still exist in this world. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you the courage to set boundaries or the satisfaction of seeing justice served, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they're not crazy for refusing unreasonable demands. And drop a comment below. Tell me about your own experiences with entitled exes, manipulative family members, or people who thought your wallet was their emergency fund. Your stories matter, and they help others realize they're not alone. Remember, your boundaries aren't suggestions, they're requirements. And anyone who can't respect them has shown you exactly who they are. Until next time, stay strong and never apologize for protecting your peace.